Jan Lipavský is the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Czech Republic. Welcome to our program, Minister Lipavský.
Thank you very much for having me.
US President Donald Trump had a phone call with Russian dictator Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyi. He said that he is able to end the war and to make a deal for a ceasefire. What is your reaction to this surprising development?
I think it's important to say that there must be fair peace negotiation where two sides sit at the table, Russia and Ukraine, represented by its elected president, democratically elected president Volodymyr Zelenskyi. And I think this is a principle which we must follow, and this is the position of the Czech Republic.
Do you feel that Europe also should have a place on the negotiation table?
I would not phrase the question like this, even though it is a legitimate question. I would ask what Europe needs to do to be a relevant actor in all those geopolitical processes. So we are witnessing now the emergency summit being called to Paris. I'm looking forward to results of that. And we can do quite a lot of things. So this morning there was an informal gathering of European ministers here in Munich, called by Kaja Kallas. It was quite productive, and we have clear understanding that Europe needs to develop a new plan and a concrete set of actions, which will give us a relevant voice. And then we won't ask even such a question if we are or not we are sitting at the table.
How should such plan look like from your perspective?
This is something I cannot comment much more on because this is being developed, and this definitely, I'm sure, will be the result of those political consultations on highest possible level.
There are lots of discussions about the possibility of deploying European peacekeeping forces to Ukraine in case of a ceasefire. Would you, your country, your government be ready to commit any kind of troops to such mission, to participate in such mission?
I think now it's not time to discuss such details or not even to speculate on them. But for sure, we know that the best security guarantee for Ukraine is to arm Ukraine, to provide Ukraine with weapons. Czech ammunition initiative. We help to level the ratio 1-to-1 on large caliber ammunition. We know that Ukraine needs more long-range capabilities to defend itself from Russian attacks. You know, the best missile is the missile which is not flying even from the land side. The best airplane trying to bombard Ukraine is the airplane which is destroyed on the airport before it's able even to start its flight. So those are those long-range capabilities. And for 3 years, Ukraine is able to bravely defend itself from Russian raiders, from the imperialistic invasion. And we have a means to provide Ukraine to defend itself. We just need to find a political will. And of course, it's a matter of resources. This is always the most problematic debate.
Do you feel that Europe can help Ukraine to negotiate with Russia from a position of strength?
Absolutely.
And how could it be done? How could it be achieved?
We have to develop this position of strength. I think this is what is the mood here in the corridors of Munich Security Conference when I speak with European leaders. But we are not there. Czechia did quite a lot, and we will continue to do so. But of course, we are one of many European countries, mid-size power. So I'm trying to convince the others to, for example, continue donation to the Czech Munition Initiative edition 2025, or to take more measures on the EU level. But those are quite difficult discussions. But I'm sure that these days might bring positive development.
And also, you just mentioned about the Czech initiative on providing Ukraine with ammunition. What are the next plans about in the matter of military support for Ukraine? What do you plan to do this year? What are your plans, expectations for this?
The plan is to continue with the project as it is. It shows that this is very sufficient. It helped to change the ratio of ammunition on the battlefield positively, helping Ukraine army to defend against the endless stream of attacks. So we want to continue with this model. But of course, we need to find the financing because we need international donors. We need we need states to join it. I have nothing specific to announce in this regard, just that we are working on that, and I hope that we will be successful with that.
Also, Trump administration would like European allies to buy weapons for Ukraine from the US weaponry production from the United States. Would you be ready? And other allies, do you feel that there is a readiness to buy weapons directly from the US to Ukraine?
I think it's important to focus that we need to deliver weapons to Ukraine. I'm not ready to discuss details, but for example, we have this 300 billions of frozen Russian assets. This is a quite interesting money which could be used for such things like weapons for Ukraine or some humanitarian development aid. We really should open the discussion on how to touch those money.
Also, EU is working on the next sanctions against Russia, the next package of sanctions. What is your position on that, and what would you like to see in this decision, in this package of sanctions?
We are supporting this package as the previous one. The Czech proposal, which I'm trying to push through the EU, is to limit the Schengen for Russian diplomats and the technical staff and the family members, because there is so many sabotages. Last year we have counted at least 100 sabotages which could be connected to Russia in Europe, and we should do measures which will limit the Russian ability to do those things. So I'm actively lobbying for that, and I'm happy that France has joined the club of supporting countries for this initiative. We have not reached the EU 27 consensus yet, but I see this as a progress, and we have to understand that Russia is not providing our diplomats with nothing near to Schengen, because they have no other connected countries to Russia in this regard. So we are positively providing asymmetric measure to Russia 3 years of the aggression against Ukraine and the aggression against Europe with sabotages and information warfare. I think we should act.
Thank you, Minister Lipavský, for your time and for your support for Ukraine, and glory to Ukraine.
Thank you very much for having me again, and good luck all to defenders of Europe. Thank you.
Pål Jonson is Minister of Defense of Sweden. Welcome to our program, Minister Jonson. I would like to begin our discussion with Rammstein and recent statements from the Pete Hegseth, US Secretary of Defense. He said that the war in Ukraine should be settled by making a deal. Also, he urged European allies to do more to provide Ukraine with security guarantees. From your perspective, do you feel that now there is a chance to negotiate a ceasefire deal with Russia?
Well, I think what is important is what your president and the Ukrainian people think, of course, but we take note that your president has opened for willingness to negotiate during 2025, and that, of course, he also want to finish the war, and the Ukrainian people, of course, want to do that as well. What is important is that it becomes a fair peace in that war, and not a bad agreement which would embolden Russia and weaken Ukraine. So the best thing we now as European allies can do is to step up support to Ukraine, and therefore we announced just last week our biggest support package to Ukraine so far, with 1.2 billion euros. So we are laser focused to provide the Ukrainians with the ability to negotiate from a position of strength if Ukraine would like to do so.
Do you feel that Ukraine now can negotiate with Russia from a position of strength?
I think there's more we can do, providing more defense equipment to Ukraine from our own stocks, to provide them, as Sweden is doing, also newly produced defense equipment, because we have a strong defense industrial base, but also investing into the Ukrainian defense industrial base, which has undertaken a very impressive ramp up of production. So we opened up for investing into Ukrainian long-range strike capabilities, both with missiles and long-range strike drones and artillery pieces and so forth. So that's been very encouraging and also very impressive to see how much Ukraine has ramped up production during this year.
What are your impressions on the latest Rammstein meeting and also participation of the Pete Hegseth, US Secretary of Defense?
that Secretary Hexat is pushing the Europeans to do more, and I basically think that is sound as well, because we need to do more. Okay, in 2024 we did about 60% of the support, but Secretary Hexat was also alluding to the fact that US also have other facing challenges in the Indo-Pacific and so forth. And I do think that the Europeans can do more, and that everybody should also be able to contribute according to the size of their armed forces and the size of their economy.
Is Sweden ready to deploy troops in case of a peacekeeping mission in Ukraine? Because US Secretary of State Pete Hexat suggested that European forces could play a key role in securing peace in Ukraine without American presence.
Yeah, I heard it today, and I heard it before as well, but I would like to see something on paper, what that actually entails, and what the model is before we're ready to comment on it anything further like that. So our focus right now is to provide maximum amount of military support and training to Ukraine, so Ukraine has the ability to, from a position of strength, if it so chooses, to negotiate.
After this meeting of Rammstein Group today, do you have feelings that the US will continue to help Ukraine to negotiate from a position of strength in any kind of way?
Well, I do take note that military support from the US has continued, and we welcome that as well. But I think we also have to do more as Europeans as well, because on balance, Europe is not delivering as much as we should, and we should ramp up production as well, and step up training. I think that's absolutely crucial as well.
Also, there have been some discussions about the possibility for European nations to buy weapons for Ukraine from the United States or to use Russia's frozen assets. How do you see this new format of cooperation, of providing Ukraine weapons from the US? How could we deliver next packages from military assistance to Ukraine?
The stakes in this war is enormous for Ukraine, but it's also enormous for Sweden and the whole Europe. And if you have that mindset, you have to also have an open mindset in how you best can support Ukraine. And of course, we had other initiatives, such as the Czech initiative, procuring 155 artillery ammunition from various countries. And I think we have to have an open mind also on the possibility of financing foreign military sales from the US and so forth. But what we should be focusing on seeing how we best can support the Ukraine, and then Sweden will have a very pragmatic approach to that as well. In regards to the windfall profits of the Russian assets, we welcome, of course, now that the EU is investing into Ukraine's defense industrial base, and we stand ready also to do more if that is possible.
And also, from your perspective, I would like also to cover NATO's membership. It seems like the United States put this matter off the table right now. What is your reaction to this?
Well, our position is that we think that Ukraine do belong in NATO, but of course it has to fulfill the conditions for it. And this is a matter between Ukraine and the 32 NATO allies, that no country should have, especially not Russia, should have a veto over this matter.
What are your expectations for this year of 2025 regarding the war in Ukraine and the outcome of this war, and also possibility of a ceasefire?
Well, I think that no one wants peace more than the Ukrainian people, because the horrible aggression that Ukraine is exposed to. But let's make sure that this is a fair peace, and a peace that would in that case also be a peace on Ukraine's term. And the best thing we can do is just to make sure that we support Ukraine as much as possible.
And do you feel that Russian dictator Vladimir Putin could be forced to negotiate this year or not yet?
Well, I think that he should be aware that the sanctions have effect and that we and many others are making long-term commitments to continue supporting the Ukraine for as long as it takes, because our security is so closely intertwined into Ukraine's security. So and so far, this war has not been in any way a successful. Russia, it still hasn't achieved any of its main strategic objectives, and it controls less than 18% of the Ukrainian territory. And I also mentioned that, for example, that half a year ago, Ukrainian troops went into Russian territory, and this past half a year, and Russia has not been able to regain that territory and so forth. And that shows that what you can do when Ukraine is acting from a position of strength.
And do you feel that there is now enough pressure on Vladimir Putin to begin any kind of talks? Because Kremlin says that they will not bargain Kursk region for occupied territories of Ukraine right now. It seems like they are still refusing to sit on the table.
Well, what I think is important is to step up pressure against Russia in that regard, and that could be entailing more sanctions. That's something that Sweden has been a driving force for within the EU. We've also been a driving force, for example, on doing more against identifying ships that's connected to the shadow fleet. So Sweden is an active partner when it comes to constraining Russia's behavior. But the best way to constrain Russia's behavior connected to our own security is continuing supporting Ukraine, of course.
And what are your plans of your government in context of support for Ukraine this and the next year, military support, and what would be your focus on this?
Ramping up industrial production inside Sweden to provide the Ukrainians with more defense equipment, encouraging Swedish companies to invest inside Ukraine to make sure that we have an effective collaboration also when it comes to technology transfers between Swedish companies and Ukrainian companies. And I had Minister Umerov in Stockholm in this fall, and we discussed what can our defense industrial base deliver, which is quite a lot, and what do the Ukrainians need, and we compared notes there, and I think we have a path forward as well, which could be beneficial to Ukraine.
Thank you, Minister Jonson, for your time and for your support for Ukraine, and glory to Ukraine.
Glory to Ukraine. Thank you.